1 hour of spine-chilling horror stories discovered 10 terrifying secrets of haunted nights alone. Jenna gripped her lukewarm tea tightly, its warmth inadequate against the chill that crept into her bones. The heavy rain lashed against the roof of her new home, a quaint but aging structure in Cedar Hollow. Outside, shadows danced under the pale streetlights, casting doubt and discomfort in every corner. Tucking her young son Liam into bed, she felt a dark whisper echo through the silence of the house. She had escaped the suffocating walls of an abusive relationship, hoping this place would offer safety. Yet the walls of this house felt like they were closing in on her. The storm raged on, and an unsettling comfort settled as Jenna listened to the rhythmic drumming of the rain. The soft rise and fall of Liam's chest calmed her, but it was short-lived. The phone rang, shattering the quiet. She hesitated, but answered anyway. It was Mrs. Collins, her elderly neighbor, with a voice edged in urgency. "You need to know about the secrets of Cedar Hollow," she warned, each word dripping with dread. Stories spilled, vanished families, obsessions that hung like a noose, shadows that grew darker in the mist. Jenna's heart raced as Mrs. Collins mentioned the dark force lurking within their new home, tales that twisted her stomach into knots. As Jenna ended the call, a nervous chuckle escaped her lips, but it died when she turned to see Liam staring intently at the corner of the living room. "Who are you talking to, buddy?" she asked, her voice betraying the calm she tried to muster. "Mr. Wilkins," he whispered, his wide blue eyes flickering with something Jenna couldn't comprehend. She forced a smile, trying to shake off the growing unease. Maybe it was just the stress of moving. But then the shadows seemed to stretch and warp around her, echoing whispers just out of reach. Suddenly, a buzz rang in her pocket, her phone vibrating with an alert. An alert warned of tensions rising in Cedar Hollow due to reports of suspicious figures lurking in the night. Panic gripped her heart. Could it all be connected? Had the sanctuary she yearned for turned into a nightmare? The rain morphed from a steady patter into a wild torrent, each drop pounding like a countdown she couldn't ignore. Just as her resolve began to break, a noise interrupted her thoughts. A tap, tap, tapping on the window. Jenna's pulse quickened. Peeking through the curtain revealed nothing but the distorted outline of trees swaying in the dark fog. Turning back to the living room, her blood turned cold. The door to the backyard was ajar. Heart racing, she rushed over and locked it, her mind racing to the stories of Mr. Wilkins. "Stay close, Liam," she urged, her voice trembling as she scanned the dim corners of the room. Suddenly, a muffled voice beckoned from the shadows, cutting through the relentless rain. "Mummy?" It wasn't Liam's voice. This was deep and twisted, like a hungry echo.
Before she could process the panic surging within her, a figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette peering at her with icy familiarity. "Who are you?" Jenna gasped, backing away, only to find herself pressed against the wall. The figure moved forward, every detail sharp in the dim light, revealing things only someone who knew her intimately would know. Jenna's world crumbled as she recognized the very foundation of her worst fears unraveling before her. She needed to protect Liam, but how could she when the very home she sought refuge in was demanding their love as a sacrifice? The secrets buried in Cedar Hollow were rising with the tide of the storm, and now they were hunting her. You forgot what it means to be a family." Jenna shook her head, the memories clawing at her. She couldn't forget the darkness, the chaos, the pain he had brought into her life. It had taken years to silence the echoes of his abuse, to find peace for herself and Liam. "You're not him anymore. You're dead inside." But the words tasted bitter on her tongue. Thunder cracked outside, shaking the very walls and giving her a fleeting moment of strength. She took a careful step back and turned, the door leading to the rest of the house looming ominously behind her. "I'll call the police!" she shouted, scrambling for her phone. But as she reached for it, a cold grip bound her wrist. "They can't help you, Jenna. The darkness in this place, it's always been waiting for you." His fingers tightened, sending pulses of fear coursing through her veins. In a surge of desperation, she kicked at him, the crack of her foot against his shin echoing in her ears. He staggered back, expression morphing into rage. "You think you can fight what you do not understand?" Jenna's heart raced. The shadows swirled around them, flickering as if drawn by the chaos within her. She darted toward the kitchen, where she had seen a knife lying on the counter earlier. Her only thoughts were to protect Liam, but every shadow whispered doubts into her mind. Maybe there was no escape. Maybe they were already trapped. As she reached the kitchen, another gust of wind howled outside, rattling the windows. In that brief, terrifying moment of vulnerability, Jenna turned back. The figure was gone. The storm outside momentarily halted, as if holding its breath. But then she saw it, the flicker of movement by the back door, which swung open despite being locked. "Mommy!" cried Liam, this time more urgently. She rushed toward him, but as she reached the hallway, a different voice echoed, chilling her bones. "You can't protect him forever," it taunted from the darkness, a mere whisper that curdled her blood. The lights flickered above, plunging her into an unsettling dimness. Shadows began to twist and turn, and she felt a presence behind her, wrapping around her like a fog. "You've brought him here," it moaned from the darkness, "and now—" Jenna's hands trembled as she clutched the knife, ready to defend. "Leave him alone!" she screamed, turning, ready to face whatever was coming. But as she spun around, eyes scanning, all she saw was the echo of what once was. Suddenly, the noise stopped, enveloping them in silence. Her heart pounded in her ears, drowning out reason. The malevolent vibe drained the warmth from the house, laying bare the truth. They had been marked the moment they set foot in Cedar Hollow, and a far greater horror lay waiting just around the corner. And now, with the course of the approaching storm looming, did Jenna truly have the strength to confront both the ghosts of her past and the invisible terror that stalked them in the night? Jenna's gaze darted wildly around the kitchen, the shadows creeping closer, brushing against her skin with icy tendrils. Heart pounding, she felt the knife slip from her fingers, clattering to the floor like the final heartbeat of hope. "Where are you?" she whispered, her voice cracking as she scanned the gloom. Before she could think, a thud echoed from the direction of Liam's bedroom, a sound heavy and dreadful. "Liam!" Panic surged through her, and she turned to sprint down the hall. She pushed the kitchen door open, as if it could shield her from the darkness lurking just beyond. Liam's door stood ajar, the faint light from his tiny lamp spilling into the hallway, illuminating the terror in her eyes. She raced inside, but the room felt wrong. A cold draft slithered through, every nerve in her body vibrating like a taut wire. "Liam!" The desperation in her voice wrapped around her like a noose. As she stepped into the room, she was hit by a pungent smell, something musty and grotesque. The bed was empty. She surged forward, heart racing. "Liam!" The dread coiled in her gut, winding tighter with every passing second. "Mommy!" His voice, small and frightened, echoed from the closet. Jenna froze, fear coursing through her veins like ice. The closet door was slightly ajar, shadows dancing inside like hungry spirits waiting to pounce. "Stay there, honey, I'm coming," she whispered, forcing herself forward, each step feeling heavier than the last. As her fingers brushed against the doorknob, it felt as if 1,000 eyes were watching her. She hesitated, listening to Liam's soft breaths, a tiny anchor in a storm of chaos. "Hold on, Liam," she urged, swinging the door open. Darkness swallowed the closet whole. "No!" she shouted, voice rising in panic, her heart thundering madly in her chest. She stepped into the blackness, feeling for him, hoping he was just playing, hiding for fun. "Liam, I need you to come out!" A chill wrapped around her ankles, as if the darkness itself was trying to pull her down. The weight of despair pressed against her chest, suffocating her spirit. And then, laughter. Not her son's laughter, but a mirthless sound that echoed darkly in the hallway, rising from the shadows beneath Liam's bed. "No!" Jenna gasped, her heart hammering erratically as she stumbled back. The oppressive fear bloomed in her throat, choking her as she felt an unseen hand grip her arm tightly. She wrenched away, spinning around in horror. The figure stood there, cloaked in shadows, its face obscured. "You were warned," it hissed, the voice twisted, a blend of her worst memories and everything that had haunted her. "Your boy belongs to us now." "No!" she screamed, adrenaline coursing through her, ramping her panic to an unbearable height. She lunged for Liam's bed, desperate to shield him, but the figure moved with frightening speed, blocking her path. A deep, rumbling laughter filled the room, unnatural and echoing like a death knell for her hope.
She was caught in a snare of despair, paralyzed by the weight of her past, the darkness whispering truths she couldn't face. The tower of shadows rose around her, and all she could do was scream. But could anyone hear her? "Mommy!" Liam's voice pierced the air, rising from the shadows, and suddenly that laughter vanished, leaving only silence, ominous, all-consuming silence. Then, just when she thought the nightmare couldn't get worse, the lights flickered and went out. The room plunged into an abyss of pitch-black darkness. Jenna felt the terror wrap around her completely. In this chilling void, was she still capable of saving her son? She held her breath, fear clawing at her sanity. What awaited them in the dark? Despair or salvation? The clock was ticking, and she could feel it winding tighter. Somewhere in that dread-filled stillness, a chilling truth began to unfold. They were never alone, and now the storm was just beginning. Jenna's breath quickened, swallowed by the heavy silence. Shadows wrapped around her like grasping hands, and she could almost feel their cold whispers against her skin. "Liam, where are you?" Her voice trembled, desperation clawing at every word. The darkness felt alive and hostile, filling the room with an atmosphere so thick she thought she might suffocate. "I'm here, Mommy," came Liam's voice again, fragile and close, but masked by an unsettling distance. The closet's darkness felt like a living entity. With shaking hands, Jenna stepped deeper into the room, every inch filled with an unbearable dread that coiled tighter in her stomach. She strained to hear any sound beyond Liam's soft breaths, but all she could catch was the beating of her own heart, thudding like a warning drum. "Just hold on," she managed to say, sounding much braver than she felt. Jenna reached for the dresser, fumbling for something, anything that could serve as a weapon or a shield against the encroaching terror. Her fingers brushed against a glass frame. She scooped it up, its sharp edges comforting in her palm. Then the air shifted suddenly, a swell as if something heavy had passed through the room, a presence undeniable and foul.
It took everything in her to resist the urge to bolt for the door. "Liam!" she called again, her voice cracking. "I'm coming! Mommy, don't leave me! Please!" Her voice reverberated, cracking under strain. What if she couldn't reach him? The shadows seemed to grow bolder, pressing into the corners, creeping toward her. She could sense the figure lurking just beyond her vision, waiting, watching, a predator hungry for its prey. The hairs on her arms stood on end as she felt icy fingers trace the back of her neck. A sign, a warning. She swung around, armed with the picture frame, her breath hitching. Nothing, only the pulse of silence. "Stay close, baby," she yelled, deciding to brave the closet where his voice bled through.
With an overwhelming surge of courage, she pulled open the closet door wider, peering deep into the inky blackness. "Mommy!" There was panic now, painful and sharp. "Liam!" A surge of maternal instinct ignited within her. She stepped inside, bracing herself against the darkness. As her eyes adjusted, she could see rungs of old coats, hangers swaying like ghosts. "I'm here! I'll find you!" And then she felt it, a breath as cold as death against her cheek. Something shifted in the shadows, whispering her name, taunting her. "You're too late," it rasped, as if the very darkness itself spoke. Jenna clutched the picture frame tightly, her heart racing, but she had no choice. "Liam, I'm coming!" she shouted, and using every ounce of determination, she lunged forward, reaching into the deep shadows, stretching her fingers in pursuit of her son. Suddenly, the closet door slammed shut behind her with a deafening crash, plunging her into a consuming darkness. She was completely alone now, the air thick with malevolence. The laughter returned, deep, echoing, a cacophony of sinister glee. "Let him go!" she screamed, her voice echoing back, layered with fear. "You're too late. He's already ours." Panic surged through her as she wrestled against the darkness surrounding her, desperation clawing at her throat. "No! Liam!" Tears streamed down her face, the realization cutting through her like a knife. Time was running out, and the shadows were closing in. In the suffocating darkness, something grazed her cheek. She recoiled, scrambling back, trying to discover where her son was hidden. Was this the end? Would her voice be the last thing he heard? And then, just as her hope began to fade, a small hand reached for her through the suffocating dark. "Mommy!" Jenna's heart leapt, but before she could grasp his hand, the darkness roared, swallowing Liam's voice, sealing her fate deeper within the abyss. "You can't save him," the shadows hissed. All at once, a piercing light flared, blinding her momentarily, yet illuminating the horror around her. The faces of the lost, coaxed by despair, all etched with pain. But beyond this nightmare, beneath the cacophony, another sound beckoned, an echo lingering in the distance. What was it? Another voice? As the light began to flicker, Jenna stood frozen, torn between despair and a dawning hope. What had she unleashed, and could anyone escape this storm brewing just beyond the veil of darkness? Questions gnawed at her, the answers tangled with fear. She needed to face whatever was lurking in the shadows, or risk losing her son forever. But could she stand against the chilling truth? Was she truly lost within the nightmare, or could she still fight for them both? The shadows shifted again, and moments later the laughter faded, leaving an even darker silence. Jenna gasped in the sudden darkness, her heart racing wildly as she struggled against an invisible grip pulling at her from all sides. She could hear the faint rustle of fabric, the breath of a creature that wanted nothing but to drown her in despair. She squeezed the picture frame harder, pressing it against her chest as if it could protect her from the darkness that thickened around her. "Liam!" she yelled again, her voice echoing back to her, twisted and distorted like a cruel mockery. Was that a laugh?
A child's voice twisted with something dark? She pressed on, focused on the sound that had sparked her last shred of hope. "Mommy!" Another voice, further away, pitched high with terror. It sent a spark of adrenaline coursing through her. "Mommy, help!" In an instant, she lunged forward, hands outstretched, fingernails scraping against coarse hangers and old coats. A fierce desperation flooded her. "I'm coming, sweetheart! I'll find you!" But the shadows wove tighter, counteracting her every move, pulling her back, urging her to forget. She stumbled, her foot catching the edge of the closet floor, and she let out a cry as she fell hard against the wall. The image of Liam's face flickered through her mind, his innocent smile, the way his eyes sparkled with mischief. "Please don't leave me," he had said. A shudder racked her body as she fought her way back to her feet. She could feel panic slipping into her veins, a torrent of dread that threatened to swallow her whole. Her eyes strained, searching. The dim light started to dim once more. "Liam!" she screamed into the enveloping blackness. "I won't stop! I'll find you!" As if in response, the darkness surged forward with cold intensity, circling her, wrapping around her like comforting arms, attempting to draw her into their fold. Her skin crawled, deep instinct flaring against the chill as she felt the despair of those trapped within this void. "Mommy!" he cried again, now drifting farther, his small voice in echo fading into the cacophony of laughter and whispers. She felt helpless, sinking down into despair. "No!" Jenna cried, the word ripped from her throat with raw urgency. She couldn't let him down, not now. The voices had returned, a chorus of jarring laughter that clawed at her sanity. The light returned momentarily, shimmering through the folds of darkness, revealing a shape. What? A figure stood before her, its outlines suggestive of innocence, almost like a child, pale and flickering at the edges. "Mommy, I'm scared!" The likeness to Liam caught her breath, but something was off. The eyes glowed with an unsettling brilliance, an unsettling mirage that darkened her thoughts. "Help me, please!" "Liam?" She cautiously reached out, her heart pounding in her ears. The figure wavered, its features twisting into a grotesque mask of suffering. The familiar face shifted, draping her in an oppressive veil of dread. "No! Help me!" The voice strained, a cruel mockery of her son's call, resonating in the depths of her mind.
The laugh returned, darker now with a sharp edge, slicing through the fragile flicker of hope she had left. Her world narrowed, consumed by despair. "No, Liam!" In an act of desperation, she turned from the figure, seeking the truth amidst the shadows. Her breath was quick, like she was being chased, fingers brushing against the jagged edges of forgotten memories in the dark. She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, willing away the horror wrapping around her heart. And then she heard it, a soft but steady tap, 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 resonating through the darkness. It felt familiar, almost rhythmic, dragging her back slightly from the brink of surrender. This was a sound she knew, something from a story she'd read to Liam before bed. "Listen," she urged herself, eyes wide as she made her way toward the sound. In the depths of the shadow-laden abyss, the tapping intensified, each strike like a heartbeat pushing her further. She had to summon her strength, break free from this torment. Was Liam nearby? "Don't give up," she whispered to herself. The walls pressed closer, the laughter grew louder. But the sound drew her in, guiding her forward through the impenetrable void. It was a tune of hope in a land of despair, a melody that beckoned her closer. Could she grasp it before being swallowed whole? With every ounce of courage she pressed on, fighting what wanted to consume her soul. But as she reached the melody, the laughter stilled, and the darkness thickened once more. Something stirred behind her. Was it Liam, or was it something far more sinister? "Mommy!" The arrival of a breathless whisper shattered her resolve anew.
Silence fell heavily in the darkness as she turned to face the source. What awaited her in that flickering light? A new threat lurked just beyond her grasp. The laughter vanished, leaving a trembling silence that felt almost alive, pulsating with anticipation. Jenna's heart raced, each beat reverberating through the oppressive void like drums signaling her doom. She twisted, her body turning instinctively toward the whisper that shattered her final shred of sanity. "Mommy!" The voice unfurled like a living thing, wrapping around her throat, squeezing tight. "Liam, is that you?" she croaked, desperation clawing at her throat. The shadows deepened, swallowing the flickering light with an insatiable hunger. A soft breeze wisped past, chilling her skin, carrying with it a scent she recognized, freshly baked cookies, Liam's favorite. "It's not real," she chanted silently. "It's all a trick." Yet the nostalgia looped through her mind, igniting memories that threatened to weaken her resolve. The space around her pulsed, thickening into a heartbeat. "Mommy!" The voice cried again, and this time the ache in its tone felt genuine, an echo of her child's laughter turned mournful. "Follow my voice! I'm coming!" Jenna shouted, though her voice trembled as if the darkness was mocking her.
She raced forward through the blackness, her fingers brushing against surfaces now drenched in sweat, seeking anything solid among the chaos. The tapping resumed, a relentless beacon just out of reach. It shifted, becoming a rhythm that thrummed like a metronome, a stark contrast to the dissonance surrounding her. "Liam!" Her voice cracked, urgency burning in her chest. The tapping intensified, now accompanied by a low, grumbling growl that sent icy tendrils of fear crawling up her spine. Then she saw it, a flicker of light ahead. It pulsed like a candle flame in the wind. Jenna stumbled forward, heart pumping fury and dread through her veins. The closer she got, the more the shadows recoiled, distancing themselves as if afraid of the glow. But just when she thought salvation was within reach, a monstrous figure squatted in the light. It was hunched, elongated, covered in shadows that warped its essence. Jenna froze, terror gnawing at her stomach. The creature turned, its eyes burning with a cold, soulless fire. "Mommy!" it rasped, the voice a twisted parallel of her son's, each syllable slithering into her mind like poison. "No, you're not him!" she cried, her own voice thick with horror. But the creature smiled, revealing razor-sharp teeth that glinted in the dim light. "He needs you, Mommy." With a surge of adrenaline, Jenna bolted backward, desperate to escape. She turned, willing her legs to move faster, but the shadows shifted, closing in around her, sealing off her route. The tapping became a cacophony, a maddening rhythm that matched her frenzied breaths. "Help me!" the voices echoed, intertwining, blurring the line between Liam's cries and the taunting laughter lurking in the dark. Jenna pressed against the wall, her palms slick with cold sweat. "I won't abandon you!" she screamed, forcing herself not to give in to despair. She could feel the creature drawing nearer, its breath hot against her neck. She had to find Liam. She had to. Around her, the darkness whispered more secrets, promising release, but every promise echoed false. With newfound resolve, she pushed against the wall, heart hammering. Yet a shadow darted at the corner of her eye, a fleeting movement that chilled her blood. "Mommy!" The voice surfaced from the pinprick of light, a luring melody amid the chaos. In that desperate moment, she hesitated, torn between the sound of her son and the encroaching monstrosity. Could she trust her instincts? As she took a step forward, the creature lunged, darkness spilling from its maw, ready to consume her whole. What would she choose? The love of a mother or the deceitful embrace of despair? Jenna's body reacted faster than her mind. She spun away from the creature, dodging its grasp just as its skeletal fingers slashed through the air behind her. The darkness beyond the flickering light felt like a chasm ready to swallow her whole, but she had no choice. She ran.
Her legs moved instinctively, while her thoughts swirled in a storm of panic. "Liam!" she screamed again, the name echoing back at her in mocking whispers from the shadows. The cold fingers of despair tightened around her heart, but she had to push through. She had to find him. The cacophony of tapping surrounded her now, a maddening chorus, each sound laced with urgency and dread. She could almost feel the desperation echo off the walls, but she couldn't let it break her. With every trembling step, she followed the sound of Liam's voice, even as it twisted with echoes of her own terror. "Mommy, help me!" It sounded close, yet the darkness seemed to stretch infinitely, dragging her deeper into its malevolent embrace. Suddenly she stumbled, crashing into something hard. A table? The collision sent a wave of pain shooting through her, but she steadied herself. Straining her ears, she focused on that tapping again. It was closer, almost right above her. "Liam!" she cried out, desperation punctuating her words. The light flickered overhead, casting jagged shadows that danced like phantoms, laughing at her helplessness. But as Jenna regained her footing, she caught movement behind her. The creature was advancing, a twisted mockery of her son's form, its grin widening with each passing moment. It closed the gap with unnatural speed, a whirlwind of darkness, the stench of rotten things radiating from it. With a surge of sheer terror, Jenna lunged forward, praying the voice she heard was still guiding her. The darkness swirled almost grotesquely, constricting her like a boa crushing its prey. She could feel it weighing down her lungs, suffocating her hope. "Mommy, please!" The voice was now so close, like a soft breeze brushing against her ears, yet it was still mingled with the laughter that haunted her. She veered sharply to the left, desperation pushing her frantically onward. The shadows twisted and turned with her, but she was determined. The flickering light ahead was a beacon, a reminder that something, anything, was worth fighting for. But as she lunged toward it, a massive claw shot out, raking across her arm. Pain exploded, and she stumbled back. "Mommy!" The tortured cry sent a jolt of adrenaline through her, mingling with her agony. "Stay back!" she shrieked, her voice raw, as she whipped around. The creature paused, as if contemplating its next move, the piercing gaze boring into her soul. No more hesitation. She had to trust the flicker of light, her last chance. Determined, she sprinted forward, ignoring the burning in her muscles. The air crackled with tension, shifting like a storm. As she burst through, the creature roared behind her, a sound so filled with rage and despair that it shook the ground. But the room she entered was not what she expected. It was open, filled with bright, blinding light, but it was vacant, an empty realm that mocked her hopes of escape. "Liam!"
She gasped, scanning the open space, expecting to find her son waiting at the center of it. But all she found was silence, the kind that hung heavily in the air, pressing against her skin like a thick layer of frost. "Mommy!" The voice floated in from nowhere, a chilling melody that filled the empty room, twisting her heart with dread. She was not alone. Before she could react, the shadows poured into the room like a web, entrapping her. The laughter began again, echoing, intertwining with the cries for help, until it reverberated through her very bones. Jenna stood frozen, terror tightening its grip at her throat. "What do you want from me?" she screamed into the void, but that question hung unanswered, thickening the air around her. In that moment of dread, she dared not move, but the shadows surged forward, carrying a promise, or perhaps a threat, that loomed larger than ever. "You'll never leave until you understand." What truth, she pondered, was hidden in this wretched cage of despair? Jenna's heart raced. The shadows wriggled closer, undulating like writhing serpents eager to strike. She pressed her back against the wall, palms clammy against the cold surface. A sickening mixture of fear and despair churned in her stomach as the whispers grew louder, their mocking tones echoing around her. "You'll never leave until you understand." The voice was not just from the shadows, it was everywhere, filling every crevice of the light. The entity hidden within the darkness seemed to relish her torment, inhaling her fear like a fine perfume. Jenna gasped, fighting against the panic threatening to swallow her whole. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, her voice trembling but defiant. Silence followed, pressing in on her, heavy and suffocating. The shadows paused for a mere moment, as if to weigh their options. Then they converged with sudden ferocity, enveloping her like a thick fog. She could feel their coldness against her skin, seeping into her bones. Thoughts of Liam surged through her mind, his soft face, the way he laughed. "I have to find him," she whispered to herself, urging her legs to move. The darkness shrieked around her, the cacophony of laughter and cries intensifying, but she pushed against it. She needed to move, to evade the encroaching doom. Jenna turned and began to sprint, blinded but resolute. But where was she going? Each step seemed to bring her to another wall, another stretch of empty light. It was as if the very room morphed and twisted around her, a living thing designed to keep her lost. She stumbled, a sharp pain shooting through her ankle. Gritting her teeth, she forced herself onward. "Mommy, please!" Liam's voice pierced through the noise, clearer this time. It wrapped around her heart, a tangible lifeline amid the chaos. She peeled her eyes away from the shadows, searching the blinding light for her son. Liam had to be here, somewhere. "Liam!" she called out, her voice breaking with emotion.
Amid the swirling chaos, shapes began to emerge from the light, shifting and rearranging. Jenna squinted, straining to decipher the forms. They flickered like old film, indistinct but eerily familiar. Faces, perhaps, of those lost to her, caught in the tangle of shadows. Their eyes were wide with fear, just like hers. Then she saw him, a small figure hovering in the haze, the outline of Liam's frame. Her heart soared. "Liam!" she screamed, but as she reached for him, the shadows lunged back, fiercely tugging at her limbs, dragging her step by step from her boy. "Mommy!" His voice was laced with terror, her breath hitched. Then, just as quickly as he appeared, he vanished behind a curtain of darkness, swallowed whole. "No! No!" The word ripped from her throat. Jenna's pulse pounded in her temples as she fought against the suffocating shadows. They whispered promises of despair, wailing lies in familiar tones. "Understand! Understand!" She collapsed to her knees, gasping against the weight of despair pressing on her chest. Understanding what? What could they possibly want her to know? Suddenly, the shadows began to pull away from her. They retreated to reveal a single door at the far end of the room, shrouded in flickering light. A chance to escape. But the fear still clawed at her throat, and the laughter started to rise again, belittling her. "Leave now, Jenna. You'll lose everything if you do." Jenna hesitated, torn between fleeing toward the door and remaining to confront the dark truth that loomed heavier than any fear. She could feel the pull of Liam's voice still echoing in her mind, a faint melody urging her forward. Should she step through the door into the unknown, or face the darkness that sought to ensnare her? With a shaky breath, she readied herself to make a choice that would either lead her to her son or deeper into the heart of despair. What lay beyond that door, and what price would she pay if she chose to go? Jenna stared at the door, flickering light beckoning her.
Each heartbeat thudded in her ears, a desperate rhythm pushing her toward the unknown. But behind her, tendrils of darkness coiled around her feet like a vine, squeezing tighter, threatening to pull her back into the shadows that whispered her fears. "What if I lose him forever?" she thought. The question gnawed at her, a relentless echo. The shadows were right about one thing. She felt as if she was already losing everything. Stay or go. It was a battle of will. Whatever lay behind that door might be a blessing or a curse. But without Liam, her heart was already a graveyard of despair. Drawing in a breath to steady herself, Jenna willed her legs to push forward. Just a few steps, one foot in front of the other. An unseen force pressed at her back, urging her toward the dark entity, but she took a bold step toward the flickering light.
As she approached the door, its edges seemed to twist and shimmer, shimmering like droplets of dew in the morning sun, a sight so enticing yet deeply unsettling. The laughter from the shadow suddenly morphed, changing from high-pitched derision to a sinister kind of glee that sent icy shivers down her spine. "Leave now!" The voice was a chorus of her own insecurities, shrieking louder than ever. "You'll never find him again! The light will blind you!" Jenna slammed her eyes shut, trying to drown out the cacophony. All she wanted was Liam. He was here, somewhere. Her heart screamed that he was. The flicker of light felt like an anchor, pulling her closer with every breath. With a final, determined shove, she gripped the knob. Coldness pierced through her fingers as if the door was alive, a malevolent entity in its own right. She twisted the handle and felt a rush of wind whip around her, powerful and sharp. Her heart raced as the door swung open, revealing an expanse of white light that swallowed her whole. And then she was in, not a room, but a vast empty space. It echoed with silence, suffocating in its stillness. Her heart raced, and in that moment she felt truly alone. The door swung shut behind her, sealing away the darkness. She spun around, panic rising like a tide. "Liam!" she called out, desperation rising in her throat. Her voice was a mere whisper against the heavy silence. But there was no answer, only the soft hum of electric air and a sensation of being watched. She could feel eyes boring in her back, shadows inching in from the edges, lurking but not advancing. They were waiting, patient predators. The space shimmered, and from the void came wisps of gray fog, swirling and coiling, forming shapes. Jenna's breath hitched as the clouds parted. Before her stood a figure, not Liam, but a woman with hollow eyes and a mouth twisted into an unsettling grin. "Jenna, you're finally here," the woman spoke, her voice smooth like silk, yet dripping with venom. "We've been waiting for you. You've come to understand, haven't you?" Jenna took a step back, her instinct screaming at her. "What do you want from me?" The words felt flimsy like paper in the storm. The figure leaned forward, eyes cold and mocking. "To understand is to embrace the truth. You've lost what matters most, but we can help you find him again, if you're willing to pay the price." Price? What price? Jenna clenched her fists, a million thoughts racing through her mind. Did she dare to even consider it, or would that seal Liam's fate forever? "Choose, Jenna," the woman taunted, her grin widening. "Is it fear or knowledge that drives you?" As Jenna deliberated, the dark shapes inched closer, whispering secrets that made the blood freeze in her veins. What had she stepped into? "Time is ticking," the figure coiled with pleasure, her laugh echoing eerily, blending with the shadows that swirled around them. What would she sacrifice to get Liam back?
What horrors awaited her in this new realm? Jenna stood paralyzed. The choice was hers, but what if she was already too deep to turn back? Jenna stood amidst the swirling mist, anguish tightening its grip around her heart. The shadows danced, whispering twisted promises of power and despair. The figure before her, a ghastly reflection of everything Jenna feared, moved closer, the edge of its smile curving with cruel delight. "Your boy is lost, Jenna," the woman cooed, her voice a honeyed poison. "But understanding the darkness is the key to finding him." "No!" Jenna shouted, panic surging through her. "I refuse to believe that." But doubt flickered like the dying light around her. Could the shadows truly hold the key? Her resolve wavered as memories flooded her mind, moments with Liam, his laughter, warmth, innocence that pierced through the fog of despair. "Choose!" echoed the haunting melody of her fears, thrumming through the air like an electric storm gathering strength. "What will you sacrifice for your son?" "This isn't how it ends!" She gritted her teeth, forcing her mind to cut through the fog. Jenna would not succumb to this darkness. Summoning every atom of strength within her, she let out a roar that shattered the silence. "I'll choose love!" The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned by the defiance of her spirit. It was a fragile flame, but it flickered brightly. Jenna felt it, an ember ignited by her fierce love for Liam. The woman's grin faltered, and something dark twisted behind her eyes. "Love?" she hissed. "You think love can truly protect you? You can't escape what lurks within." But Jenna clenched her fists tighter, energy coursing through her veins, igniting a clarity that had eluded her for too long. "Maybe I can't, but I will not abandon my son. I will tear through the darkness if I have to." With those words, a blinding light burst from her core, illuminating the space. The shadows shrieked, frantically clawing at the walls, rushing away from the radiance she emitted. The figure before her twisted and contorted, rage distorting its once smooth visage. "You think you can defy us?" it growled, the shadows swirling in an ominous dance, threatening to engulf her again. "There is always a cost." "I will pay it 1,000 times over," Jenna shouted, her heart pounding like a war drum. "But first, I need to find Liam." As the light surged, it formed a bridge through the chaos, a path forged by her unwavering love. Jenna began to run, legs propelled by hope and fierce determination. The shadows tried to grasp at her, fingers clawing for her essence, but with every step, the brilliance of her light banished them further into nothingness. "Liam!" she called out, voice echoing fiercely through the void, a battle cry against despair. The shadows shook, their grip faltering against her illumination. Drawing closer to the heart of the storm, she could hear him, his desperate cries that ignited her strength further. "Mommy, help me!" Jenna's heart soared. She was almost there. The space shifted as if it was a living entity, shadows weaving ominously. She plowed forward, her spirit burning like the sun, and each stride surged her towards Liam's voice. Suddenly she broke through the swirling darkness, and in the distance she could see him, the warmth of his soft features, his bewildered eyes wide with fear, standing alone amidst a sea of darkness. "Liam!" She flung herself toward him, arms extending to embrace her child, shielding him from the malevolence encroaching on all sides. She felt him latch onto her waist, warmth flooding through her as she pulled him close. "I thought you'd never come!" His voice trembled with overwhelming relief and unfiltered love. "I'm here, baby. I'm so sorry I took so long," Jenna whispered, their bond igniting a pact stronger than any darkness. But the shadows erupted around them, howling in outrage.
"You will pay for this defiance!" they screamed, swirling like a tempest, readying to consume them both in despair. "No!" Jenna screamed, raising her arms with newfound strength. "This ends now!" With every ounce of willpower, Jenna gathered the light shimmering within her, feeling its warmth envelop both her and Liam. She directed it towards the shadows, the brightness erupting like an explosion, pushing back the darkness that sought to claim them. A roar echoed through the void as the shadows shrieked in agony, a cacophony of despair fading into the night. The light engulfed them, consuming the darkness like a cleansing fire, and Jenna felt herself being lifted, weightless, the fear and pain dissolving like ashes carried on the wind. Together, they were free. Jenna opened her eyes, blinking against the sudden daylight flooding around her. They stood outside, the storm clouds now just remnants of echoes in the sky above. The vibrant sun spilled golden warmth over them, breathing life into the chilling moments they had just endured. Liam looked up at her, innocent and shining with life. "Mommy, where were we?" Jenna knelt down, arms wrapping around him tightly. "Just a nightmare, sweetheart, a bad dream we can forget." Surrounded by the morning light, they basked in the glorious silence, knowing they had conquered the darkness together. "Always remember," Jenna whispered, brushing her thumb over his cheek, "light will always find a way through the dark." With a final glance back toward the house, Cedar Hollow no longer unwelcoming, but a faded memory, they stepped forward. It was a world reborn, and together they would face every new day with bravery and love. So keep embracing the light, friends, and remember to support us, because you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to boost us up in the algorithm.
Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means the world.